So, so this is episode 5, and this is actually, we're doing our podcast on breaking the silence.
Oh,
tonight.
That sounds mysterious. What are you talking about, Bryn?
So Michael and I have both just finished 24 hours of silence with each other.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I've been aware of in some capacity since 2006. I mean, not that anyone couldn't fathom the idea of being silent, but what I mean is that I met my spiritual teacher, Baba Hari Das, in 2006, and he's a person that took a vow of silence for like the last 65 years of his life. So the concept of somebody just being silent for an extended period of time was introduced to me at that time. And people at the yoga center would take days of silence.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Michael knows all this, so I'm really telling it to the listener. There's one person at the yoga center that practices silence all the time now. Vishwanath?
Vishwanath, yeah. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah, he walks around with a tiny little chalkboard.
He's a very good whistler, too.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
And he writes, like, random 2-word things.
Mm-hmm.
Baba Hari Das didn't really encourage people to take silence for years at a time. I mean, he knew that that was something that he was called to, but that most of us needed to speak in order to fulfill our dharma. I never took silence at Mount Madonna because I was always so excited when I was there to just like talk to and connect with the people around me, because I only saw them once a year, that this is a really great time to do it.
Yeah. And we didn't just take silence with each other, we took it with everybody else as well. Besides one person that recognized you, which I had a thought about. I thought before this, actually, that we both were going to get recognized in some capacity on the trail, because right now they've been packed, although they weren't really packed today at all because it was cold and raining. But Bryn did get recognized, and the girl said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And Bryn answered, which was nice and polite.
Yeah. You know, there's this moment of hesitation, which I think the hesitation that was there, I was afraid she had read it the wrong way. But I was like, either I'm going to stay in silence and this woman's going to feel offended and hurt at the same time, or I'm going to break the silence and say, "Oh, hey." And so I decided to break the silence because I didn't feel like...
Yeah.
I felt like the point of being silent was still being honored.
Yeah. And we did have some slip-ups. Like, I had a slip-up.
You slipped up like 3 times.
Yeah, at least 4 times probably. It kept on being when I had my attention focused on something, and then all of a sudden my attention would go to something else.
Usually to me.
Usually to you, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, nearly every time to you. It was, I got finished writing, the timer went off because Bryn and I made some different vows to each other for the next 3 weeks, which maybe we'll talk about this podcast, maybe we won't. But the timer went off for writing, and she was coming in with lunch, so it was like my attention went to her, and I just said, "Wow, that was fast." And then she went, "Shh." Oh no. I broke it. So anyways, yeah. And then somebody had like a parakeet, no, not a parakeet, a cockatoo, a parrot, or whatever the bird is that talks. I guess it's a parrot, on their apartment balcony with like a cage set up and rings and everything. So it was distracting because I was trying to figure out what it was. I thought it was a cat. And then all of a sudden it started to talk, and I went, "Oh my gosh, they have a bird set up there." And Brent looked at me again, and I went, "Oh no." So, yeah.
So I intentionally slipped up when I saw the woman on the path, and then I accidentally slipped up. Oh, there's a time where you were trying to force me to do jujitsu with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And then there was another time where it was just me and Aurora, And I looked at her and I started to say something to her.
Yeah.
And then I realized mid-sentence that I wasn't talking.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I mean, yeah, slip-ups happened. Although it was slip-up or no slip-up. It was a challenging exercise.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I didn't think it was as challenging. I actually went into it thinking it wasn't going to be very challenging. And I think it's just because it's you and I in this apartment. We have nowhere to be. We're not seeing anybody. You know, it'd be totally different if we had 5 things that we needed to do today and we were trying to practice silence. That would be really difficult. But I didn't find it that difficult until maybe not the last hour that we just did, but there was an in-between 2 to 3 hours where it was as if I had done everything for the day. And I was kind of like, oh, now I'm ready for my reward of being able to talk again. And it hadn't happened. So that was different.
That was like when you were eating pizza and watching the soccer show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I did have pizza today. I tried to have steak, but it didn't de-thaw fast enough.
Is it still de-thawing?
No, I cleaned it up.
Okay.
Yeah. These are good notes for the podcast.
So one of the things that I noticed as soon as we took silence, like it was actually, well, so I said it was a challenge. And I think what was challenging for me was not so much that I had so many urges to speak, but it was more like I actually started noticing immediately last night when we went into silence last night at 8:15 p.m. I started noticing immediately like more emotions coming up. And actually when you went to bed, our neighbor downstairs was playing his music.
Okay.
And I got so mad. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's part of the reason I didn't even come to bed until like 12:30 because our neighbor was playing music and I was just thinking about lying in bed and music playing and like being angry about it. That was one thing that came up. I mean, I probably would have been mad anyways, but I just felt like my emotions were sharper. I could see more of them. Another really positive thing that happened during this 24 hours of silence was that I was actually able to like see my thoughts more objectively than I have been able to lately. I feel like lately I've been walking around a little dazed and not really able to like separate out my thoughts from your thoughts or my thoughts from like the collective or even my thoughts from like this sounds strange. I mean, it's not that strange. My thoughts from like advertising and promotions. Like, for example, I've spent a lot of time lately thinking about what I should eat, like, or wanting to eat like the cinnamon roll or something like that. Like, there's so many different like ideas coming in about what I should be doing with my time or putting into my body that it feels like it's been distracting me from just listening to something a little bit deeper than so many external distractions. Yeah. I journaled last night and today. Like, I think I journaled 6 pages yesterday. and my pages are big. They're like full-size notebook paper. And today I think I journaled another 4.
Yeah.
So that was really positive.
That's good. I remember Baba Hari Das saying that for 2 years he had to deal with anger. At least it was 2 years. That silence was hard for him because of anger rising. So it makes sense that the emotions come up pretty starkly. I think that because I didn't experience a ton of emotion. However, I've done this practice before and fasted with it too, and I experienced a ton of emotion. Like, I wanted to have some sort of spiritual experience so bad, and because I wasn't having it, I was so upset. And in the end, I did have a spiritual experience that like made me go from the depths to elated, which is not. I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want my patternings to be like that. Do. That's not what I usually do at all. And this was years ago. So, but I mean, anyways, with saying that, this time I did not have that same experience, and I think it was because of the goals we made that we're doing. Like, I was just going 1, 2, 3, 4, as far as like reading, writing, meditating, exercising, a different type of meditation, jujitsu, working out. Again, it was in that time where I had like a bit of a lull, dancing, soccer, walking, where I had a lull that it was a little bit harder because I just wanted to talk to you, I felt like. And with saying all that too, here's what I was going to say before, which is the reading of the whole Stoic thing, and the fact that my mind's on that is really helpful for this, because the whole thing with Stoics, it's not to never show emotion or anything like that, but it's to constantly put your attention on what it is you want to put your attention on. So I've been in that mindset, and my mindset has been in one of learning, which I feel like leaves less room for the emotions to take place when I'm conceptually going through things in my head and then trying to apply it in my real life. Emotions definitely come, but when I'm in that sort of space, they just haven't come quite yet.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking about this, I'm feeling like we should share the context of why we even chose to take silence.
Sure.
Which comes back to our conversation yesterday. Yesterday, I was trying to do the math in my head for how long we'd been in shelter in place, or at least how long our business had been shut down, and it seems like it's been about 2 weeks that the business
a little over it, yeah.
Yeah, a little over 2 weeks that the business has been shut down, and then now it's like 10 days of shelter in place, maybe 12 days of shelter in place. And so I was just feeling like I was describing earlier, this sense of haziness that I feel like I've been relaxing for 12 days, and maybe and never again in our lifetime will we have the opportunity to have a reason to just stay home for over 30 days. So we know absolutely for sure that until April 30th, we're going to be in shelter in place. And maybe it's going to be longer, maybe it's not. But it seemed really important for these last 27 days of April to do something. And so you and I had that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you say a little bit about it.
Oh, you want me to say?
Yeah.
Oh, because you got upset. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Bryn yesterday got upset at me, which never usually happens. No, it doesn't happen very often. And it was because I tried to put up boundaries with it. And I think in the end, my idea kind of came out on top a little bit, which is the thing that I was setting boundaries on was like a regimented schedule. Not that Bryn was saying that we were going to have a regimented schedule, but she can definitely be very regimented with the schedule, and so can I. And when I get like that, it lasts for maybe a couple weeks, maybe a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe longer, not much longer than that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I miss one thing, then I miss two things, then I miss a day, then it's like, okay, the whole thing's been thrown away, and in 3 days I feel like crap.
I disagree. I mean, we may not have times that you have to do this from this time to this time, but you do have soccer, jiu-jitsu, dance, walking, meditation, reading and writing, all that you committed to. Working out.
You're right. No, hold on. Let me explain this. What I'm saying is if you remember, the first time we got together with business-wise, and this was on my suggestion, we divvied out like from 6 to 7 a.m. we're going to do this, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. we're going to do this, from 9 to 11 we're going to do this. And that lasted for a while. But what I've discovered with me is if I can just say, these are the things I want to do for today. Here's the things that I want. Here's the things that I need to do. And if I don't get to these, that's okay. But I need to get to these. So I have these, and they're important things in my life. And so that's what we did was we said, okay, we're having our top 3 things that we're gonna do. So we came to a collaboration with this, which was there were three things that we said we're definitely going to do, and then there were other subcategories of those things that we said we still want to do, and definitely if we have time for it during the day, we will do it. If we don't, well, then we better make sure that we do these three things.
Yeah, and so I drafted up a contract for each of us.
Yes, Brenda.
Yes, so it's definitely via my pushing, pretty firm pushing, that we actually make a contract. You were definitely resisting that.
I was resisting a
time.
contract. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then I said that, okay, well, if look at this from my perspective. And so then I was like, I said, I know you're trying to protect yourself in terms
Right.
of not having me put my agenda on you. And then I said, but for me, it's like I need something like a contract to actually stir me into motion. Like it's much easier for me to follow through with something if I tell you I'm going to follow through with it, and we're both holding each other accountable. So I think when we connected, when we talked about it in that way, that was when you came around where you were seeing that it was more for my sake that we're making the contract than for yours.
Yeah, I know it's going to help me too. I mean, I know it is. Even though I was hesitant in doing it, like I can recognize that it's going to help both of us.
Yeah, so I mean, Michael was saying we each listed our top priorities, and I had to think about this for a little while because I thought that my top priority was going to be meditation, but that actually turned out to be the third priority. I listed my top priority as healthy eating because I just see that that if I'm not eating right, like nothing else works. And then I put priority number 2 is reading and writing because that's what I actually feel inspired to do right now. And then meditation is the third priority, which I know it's something that I want to be cultivating more and more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And your top priorities?
Yeah, so my top one is reading and writing because right now my inspiration's coming a lot from reading, and because I've been reading, I've been thinking a lot about writing, and I've been writing more, way more than my norm. So reading and writing go hand in hand, and we have hours designated to this too, to make it more like a
not
goal.
Scheduled hours, but like do it for at least 2 hours a day.
Right. Meditation is my second one, and then the third one is working out, and with that's got like 4 or 5 subcategories.
Yeah.
Just because I have a lot of hobbies and interests that you share too. You have a lot of hobbies and interests as well. So it's good. It's good we can do them together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and so then the other thing was that we had talked, before we talked about making the contract, I talked about doing like an all-day meditation, and then somehow you heard it differently, and you're like, I've been thinking about that, but what you had actually been thinking about was being in silence.
Yeah.
So we decided that for the 4 Saturdays remaining in April, we would be in silence. I was thinking maybe we'd be in meditation all day, but we did land on your desire. And so then today we've been in silence for 24 hours since 8:15 last night, and then meditated a normal amount. Who knows? Maybe another Saturday we actually will meditate all day.
Maybe.
I guess I wanted to share some of the things that I've been wrestling with, like as my thoughts become more lucid to me, which like this is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit. I mean, at least in the last week, which is looking at, I know you and I started this conversation. I don't even remember how far we got into it.
Sure.
But my waning spiritual urges. Like I would say, so I've structured my life in running the studio and the training program and with the mind arts classes that we teach. There is structure there to like maintain a spiritual connection no matter what. But I've noticed just in like my day-to-day goings, it's not like I'm having this like strong urge for connection. And so as I started to notice that, like it scares me a little bit because I feel like I don't want to say I am starting to lose connection, because like every day is a new day, and today was a much deeper connection. But and yes, I had started to feel a sense of like, well, I don't want to keep going further down this path where my urge becomes less and less, and then I'm just like sucked up in worldly things. And for me, when I say sucked up in worldly things, I'm thinking about the distraction, like all the distractions, the food from the restaurant, like the things on social media, the movies that we're watching. Like it all feels like it's just distracting me from what's important. So the question that I've been having is actually, can I engineer my life in such a way that the way I've externally engineered it is going to awaken more of a spiritual urge. And this is why I even brought up to you, in our apartment, we only have access to the setting sun. And even the setting sun, we don't really have access to, because there's buildings to our left blocking us off from the setting sun. So on the sun rises in the east. On the east side of our apartment, like there are no windows, because there's another apartment on the other side of our apartment. And I felt the contrast when I was teaching a student on Friday, and I was in her room, her living room, and I was noticing the sun streaming in from like 3 different sides of the room, and I felt like so much peace from that, that I was recognizing too that like we don't have an optimally engineered apartment to be connecting with nature. But I will say that the positive thing about that is that I think it does make us get out of the apartment more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That like, because if we were in here too much, like I feel like I'd feel disconnected. We're out on the trail walking quite a bit. Anyways, this commitment, this contract that I made yesterday, and you made yours, I'm doing it almost as like this experiment to find out if I follow A, B, and C, will that engineer and unfold more of a spiritual urge.
And you said that as you were reading about mysticism yesterday, that it reignited some of that.
Yes. So then we're teaching this mysticism in Bhagavad Gita class in 4 weeks. And so we're starting to work on the curriculum more. And so yesterday I just sat down and I literally read Wikipedia for an hour.
Wow.
On mysticism. I mean, that was the only...
They have a lot on mysticism?
It took me like an hour to read it.
Wow,
well,
okay.
I mean, I should say, I didn't just read it for an hour. I think I actually took notes.
Did you like click on other links and stuff?
Yes,
too?
I clicked on other links, and I typed everything inside that article that was significant to me.
Okay.
So then it wouldn't actually take an hour to read.
Sure.
But I just kept on talking about like, what is mysticism, and just reading it, like I saw awaken the spiritual urge. So then it's very clear that like what I'm putting in front of me, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, is definitely contributing to how much of an urge is there or not there.
Yeah, and I noticed the same type of coloring on my lens as well, or my perception changing based on what I watch, or what I'm excited about, or what I'm seeing in any way. And so like when I think of self-study or swadhyaya, one of the niyamas, for me it's like that's self-study. That's definitely part of it, which is surrounding myself, like inundating myself with things that are of higher consciousness to me. So like reading the Bhagavad Gita, reading the Bible, reading something that is going to be uplifting, something that I can learn from, something that's going to inspire me. So then therefore I can reflect on my own actions and my own experiences and say, okay, well, this thing that this is saying is inspiring. Am I living this right now? And if not, well then how can I practice it? Like, is there little steps that I can take to get towards truthfulness, towards towards more of a peaceful state, towards joy, towards those things that I hold in higher regard.
One of the other things, do you mind if I shift gears back to the silence thing? One of the things I feel like I noticed almost immediately, because I think we went into silence last night, and shortly after that, we took Aurora for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed immediately the redirection of energy inside of my body, because when we were on the walk, I noticed there were several points where like the urge to speak arose, and then I had to stifle it. And so it was like I felt very viscerally how much energy is released from the body through speaking.
Yeah.
And through the choice not to speak, so much energy is contained back in the body. And so then I started to understand a lot better. Baba Hari Das talks about part of his vow of taking silence is conservation of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, so it's just, I'm trying to think of some of the other things I noticed. I also noticed that like the urge to speak when I wanted to have it last night on the walk, it's like the things I wanted to say, I don't remember what they are anymore, but they weren't important.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of wanting to fill space.
Totally. Absolutely. And I was thinking too while we were taking walks. So we took like, 3 or 4 walks?
3.
3 walks between last night and today.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking just how nice it was to walk in silence and walk with you. And even when people passed by and they said, hey, just to smile and wave. I really appreciated that a lot. And it also, like I think too, what you're saying with the whole how much energy we use when we speak, if it's going back down, well then certainly that energy has to be interpreted in some way. And so that's why things get emotional too.
Exactly.
And if you're, like I ate a lot, you didn't eat very much today. So I think that also helps in me not experiencing as many emotions, which isn't a great thing. But for you experiencing a ton of emotions, that gives you more of an experience of learning, I feel like. So yeah, just to be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think combining like the clean eating, and I thought for a little while about what I would want to do in terms of following a healthy eating protocol for the next 27 days, and today was day 1. I made it broad enough that I wouldn't feel starving, but narrow enough that like I knew it would be energizing. And so like today, I had a full meal with you, but I felt more energized after lunch than I did before lunch.
Wow.
Which that hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
It hardly ever happens because there's usually so many different things getting digested in the system, and then there's probably like some partial allergy to them, and my body gets inflamed, and then the digestive system gets fatigued. But it's like this formula of food that I put together like really rocked it. So then I'll say what the things are. Was rice and beans and vegetables and fruit are all allowed. And then I allow myself one form of oil. And I'm sticking with MCT oil. So nothing's getting cooked in oil, but I'm putting the MCT oil on top during the meal. So I had significantly less oil than I normally do.
Mm-hmm. Did you notice anything different in your meditations that you had today?
Well, so one thing that I opted for meditation today was to use the soundtrack.
Okay.
So, I mean, it would have to be jointly taking into account the fact that I use a soundtrack and that we'd been in silence all day.
Mm-hmm.
But so I've done this a few times. I use the Interstellar soundtrack.
Oh, like the movie?
For this, yeah.
Okay, at first I was like, what is that? That sounds awesome. But
I use the soundtrack from Interstellar, and the most significant thing from the meditation tonight was, I mean, I remember, like, there is an association of, like, there's definitely associations of certain parts of the movie with the soundtrack. So I'll be there, and I'll have my meditation. So my meditation is focusing on the movement of internal energies with the chakras. And I know you know all about that, but just to say that broadly.
Sure.
So I have a portion of my energy focusing on the movement of internal energy. And then there's another portion of my attention that's kind of like waning, waxing and waning between different things, whether it's a scene in the movie or like having a revelation. And one of the things that happened tonight was while I was listening to the soundtrack, I was just thinking about in Interstellar, like he goes out into outer space, like to try and save the human population, or to send future babies, which I guess they're like, I don't even know what you call it. Like, yeah, they have like a container full of things that can become human beings.
They're embryos.
Yeah, I guess they've got a container of embryos, and it's like their job to find an inhabitable planet amongst like 10 different planets. And anyways, like it's a story about saving the human race. And so then I was start to cry a little bit, like thinking about it. But the thing was, I thought about the Bhagavad Gita and how we've taught this so many times about, like, here's this battle. And when we look at it symbolically, the battle isn't really about Krishna fighting against his cousins. It's really about us overcoming our challenges in everyday life. And it's like what I made this connection of, like, we really are fighting epic battles every single day if we allow ourselves to see it in that way. Like, if I can, and then it just made me realize why we love these movies so much. It's because we see played out this idea of like overcoming challenges, like against all odds. And so, I mean, there's just like a sense of feeling really heartened through that like I am going through the same thing that these characters are going through.
Sure.
That was
lovely.
Yeah, so that was like what characterized my meditation tonight. I will say another thing too. So that's like kind of like personal revelations, like half my awareness is there, but with my body and focusing on the chakra centers, I did feel much more of a breakthrough with this, because usually as like my attention moves from one chakra center to another, it's just like, it's kind of like almost like paying lip service, if you know what I mean. Sure. Where it's like I visualize the center and that's about it. But the way I was meditating today, it was like I was really feeling like as I visualized energy moving through each center, I actually felt not just like the idea of where the chakra center is lighting up, but I felt that entire area lighting up. So if it's like for the second chakra, it's the area of the sex organs. Like I can, I say that now it sounds weird. Like I wasn't like getting turned on every time that it went through my second chakra, but I could feel the whole area of my pelvis lighting up. And so I went incredibly slow with the meditation today. Like the meditation that I usually do in 15 minutes took like 50. Oh, yeah. Because my attention was moving so slowly through these areas, and I was pausing long enough to feel awakening inside of them. And it felt like that, I don't know if it's for the first time, but it's not very often. It's like the chakras usually seem like they're just this esoteric symbol that people talk about that's not really accessible. And they felt accessible in terms of just, it's not that it's actually that it's just the chakra that's lighting up, but it's the idea that the chakra precedes the physical body and contributes to the health of all of the organs surrounding it. So it's like I saw the chakra center, and then I also saw that energy spreading out to energize the whole area surrounding each one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. It's a great meditation.
Yeah, it was a great meditation. Thank you.
You're welcome. What else?
I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful that we made the commitment to go deeper these 27 days. So we're at the end of day one. And I know it's like, yeah, it's day one. Who will see what happens in 27 days? But it feels like a really good start.
Yeah. Cool. Let's wrap it up then. Thank you guys for listening to episode 5 on our 24 hours of silence and our experience with that. We'll definitely talk more about these commitments that we've committed to, and give you our progress on what's happening with that.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Good night.
Good night.